Hello and welcome to another MovieBoozer.com virtual pubcast. I'm your host, Ken Ekman, and I'm joined today by Hawk Ripjaw,
Hello.
Bill Leon,
Well, hello there.
and Bill Arsenault.
Hey.
So the panel is all here, and we have a few interesting movies to talk about this week. We're going to begin with something super classy, the latest film from the director Peter Vack, called Assholes.
Is this his first film? Or is it not his...
I don't know if it's his first film, but it's certainly...
I will say, no,
it's his feature debut.
If the director is listening to this, I'm sorry, but it feels like a first film.
Well...
And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I think this film takes a lot of risks. But,
which is why you had to apologize for it.
Bill Arsenault, lead us off with Peter Vack's Assholes.
Peter Venkman's Assholes.
Peter Venkman's Asshole. Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah, yes. A couple weeks ago...
Imagine a Twinkie half the size of New York City penetrating an asshole.
Okay. A couple weeks ago, Zach Jeremiah of the site, the editor of the site, and Ken Ekman and myself, we did a rabbit screening of Peter Weller Fighting a Rat, which was the movie of unknown origin. Mm-hmm. And during which, or at the end of which, we talked about what we would like to do for a future rabbit screening. And Zach mentioned the movie Assholes, which I had only heard about in passing. Not gas passing, but I just heard about exactly.
Thank you for the demonstration.
There you go.
I had read articles here and there or blurbs about this being the most disgusting film of the year and things like that, and it caught my attention. So I went ahead and rented it a couple weeks later. This was last weekend actually on Amazon, and invited anyone in the Movie Boozer crew to come and join me. Bill Leon and Hawk Ripjaw did. We saw it, and we are here to talk about it. I was prepared going in for something on the level of not Kuso, but something kind of, like body horror-ish, gross.
Something in that same neighborhood, yeah.
Something more like Greasy Strangler, I guess.
As we watched this together, Bill and Hawk brought up Kuso multiple times. I don't think I watched a trailer for it. I really don't know. Apparently, this is like some big practical joke on me when I actually watch the film, because I'm going to be like really turned off by it.
You still haven't seen Kuso? Okay, you sign up for a free trial of Shudder and.
Don't wish Kuso on your worst enemy.
Yeah, this is like a practical joke. We want to see your reaction. We are telling you right now, this is a horrible movie.
Yes, it really is pretty bad.
You will sorely regret watching it, yet we compel you to try it.
Yes, but Assholes is not really a horrible film.
Here, eat this. You're going to fucking barf and shit out of your ass for hours.
Okay.
Eat it right up, please.
Please do. Assholes, just to go over the plot a little bit, which was a little difficult to understand here and there because we were just talking over it and doing a running commentary.
I mean, yes, but I think the film is structured in a very frantic way. I mean, it is, if you're paying 100% attention, it's relatively easy to follow, but like, this film is batshit crazy.
Yes,
like that's the bottom line.
Cursory level, what the movie's about is this toxic relationship between a man and a woman who really shouldn't be together because they're both former drug addicts, and they get hooked on a new drug which corresponds with their romance.
After the girl hits a bong off her brother who has some kind of herpes on his mouth or something.
Yes, she gets sexually transmitted disease via a bong. And he gets it from making out with her or having sex with her, and then they get hooked on a new drug, and they just go crazy from there. They're basically high on love and high on drugs, and soon into the movie. Well, not soon, but like eventually, like if you stick through till the end, you will find that these two people become literal assholes. And the movie isn't just about literal assholes, like the William Burroughs gag of the asshole that taught itself how to talk. It's also about figurative assholes. You know, people who are just pretentious, people who are jerks, people who are
the brother character throughout the film kind of turns his life around and becomes this like hoity-toity. What is he? A lawyer?
No, he's a psychoanalyst or a therapist.
He's like a therapist, and then like basically their physical transformation contrasts his kind of snarkiness that just ups itself every time you see his character.
He starts the movie off as like this brutish slacker who cusses all the time, wags his wiener in front of everyone, and that's actually the director, by the way. That's Peter Vack that plays that character, and slowly over the course of the film, whenever we cut to him, he's changing just a little bit into someone a little bit more upstanding, to the point where while his face isn't turning into a literal asshole, he's spouting shit.
Oh God!
The same.
Not literally. Unlike
not literally, but
our protagonists who are literally transforming into
assholes.
Anuses on their face.
Which is the gimmick of the movie, basically. That's why it's called assholes, But it's also called assholes because of the figurative assholes too.
Well, also a witch comes out of the girl's butt. We'll get to that.
Oh yeah! Oh, I forgot. I actually forgot about that scene.
You forgot about the witch?
It's the demon is played by Eileen Dietz, who is the face of the demon in The Exorcist.
Methuselah, is that her name?
Mephistopheles.
Mephistopheles. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that was surprising that she was played by the woman who portrayed the devil in the demon in The Exorcist. That's pretty interesting. Catch.
One thing I wanted to point out is that everybody is saying that this is the most disgusting movie of the year and one of the most sickening movies ever made. It's not.
No, that's totally hyperbole.
First of all, Kuso has that award for most disgusting film of the year.
Well, I think that's becoming like the new thing. It's like, oh, Greasy Strangler is the nastiest movie ever, and then Kuso, and now this, and that's the new buzzword for a movie that will get people to festival circuits to see these indie films.
I would argue that what movie would we give that title to this year's thus far?
Kuso.
This year?
Straight up Kuso? Okay.
I haven't seen Kuso, so I cannot. I'm on a different computer. I don't have my list of movies that I've seen this year. Just even thinking about it, though, I can't think of anything like really gross or grotesque that I saw this year.
Kuso's not only a disgusting movie, it's a movie that makes you feel grody just in retrospect.
Yeah, you want to shower every time you think about it.
Because Assholes was kind of like, that's kind of gross, but not any. I mean, Cronenberg has done worse.
Yes, there's some sticky noises, like whenever they're doing things with the body and stuff, but it's not. It's not like as strong as Kuso in terms of we're gonna make you vomit.
A lot of the gross stuff in this movie is sort of off screen.
Yeah. They talk about a lot of a lot of what happened. One thing we noticed, this is an observation we made throughout the film, is that the main therapist in the movie, he's bald headed, and he's got the weirdest head.
He's got the xenomorph head.
It's like his
back of his head
protrudes a little bit, and it was very off-putting. We were like, was this guy brought up in a village where he had to wear something on his head growing up as a
That guy's head made me want to vomit more than watching them feed each other shit.
All right. This movie contains probably the one scene of the year in which I was afraid for the actors' lives. The couple in the movie, after going on a drug high, they run around the streets of Times Square in New York, and they're literally accosting people on the street and just screaming and yelling.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the concept for Harmony Korine's Fight Harm, which was supposed to be like Buster Keaton meets Jackass. Like he was going to get into real fist fights with real people. And the project never happened because he couldn't find funding or insurance.
Not even Harmony Korine could come up with a way to make a movie like that.
But this movie somehow convinced its two lead actors, go out on the streets of New York and just try to get into fights with people. And people are they come close to blows a few times, and security is like trying to kick them out of a movie theater, and and they're just rambling on and on about stuff. It's really disturbing to watch that particular sequence, and it sticks out like a sore thumb because otherwise the movie would have just been some weird little comedy. Well, I wouldn't say comedy, more like I don't know. What is a good descriptor for this movie? I mean, it kind of fits under the comedy genre, but I wouldn't call it a comedy purely.
I would say it's an experimental comedy.
Okay.
One observation I made is that the movie feels like at one point the writing had it structured as a series of vignettes, and then the movie kind of pulls them all together as one narrative. There's a weird sense of compartmentalization with the events of the movie.
Yes,
because Mephistopheles, the shit demon, kind of just disappears after the second act and then never spoken of again.
Well, she reappears once.
Yeah,
in the finale, and
she comes up in the third act,
which we'll get into
finale.
in a second, which is a part of the compartmentalization of the film, in how the vignettes are structured. It's a very peculiar movie because I'm not 100% sure as to what they were going for in terms of the message, if there was a message. It feels like this is a movie with a message, but I can't quite say. The only thing I can come up with is that it's like a mirror held up to this generation of youth in America. It's the only thing I can come up with.
Yeah, it seems it's kind of a look at addiction, but
Please explain to me this Mephistopheles character.
Yeah.
Basically, I think they're 69ing and fisting and stuff like that, and then this lady just gets shit out of the girl's ass and just kind of like hangs out of their apartment for a while and convinces them that they want to kill the girl's brother.
And is voiced by whom again?
It's portrayed by Eileen Dietz, who was the face of the demon in The Exorcist.
Oh, Pazuzu. Okay. I get the picture.
I am Pazuzu.
That actually
was interviewed on I Was There Too, by the way. The podcast that Matt Gorley hosts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's in a ton of stuff. One of the funniest parts of the movie involved her is where the three of them are stalking the brother through the town, where like this ridiculous death metal music is playing on the soundtrack.
That happens more than once.
It does, and it felt like it was very Always Sunny flavored scene.
When you say ridiculous death metal, you mean like ridiculous to the point where it's almost parody?
It sounds like it was like Cannibal Corpse. Sounded like Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah. Like they do. The lead singer sounds exactly like Nathan Explosion from Death Clock until he goes high pitched, and then when he goes high pitched, it's like which sounds like Frank Welker doing the Gremlins.
Have you guys ever seen either version of Funny Games, Michael Haneke's film?
Yeah, I've seen the English language version. Yeah.
Okay, so in both versions, the one of the recurring themes musically in the film is this just crazy ass death metal tune that just like the movie opens up with this scene of this family driving into this country. Driving into the country, and they're towing their boat behind them, and they're like, "Would you like to put some music on?" "Oh, that'd be lovely, dear." They put it on, and then you hear this metal come on, and it's literally just a guy going over and over again and screaming and just sonic noise. And so I use that as a template by which to judge all examples of crazy death metal.
It was like kind of like death metal where like everybody's just mashing on all the instruments and there's screaming, like, so maybe not quite as goofy as the Funny Games thing, but I think it might have been Cannibal Corpse or some similar brand of metal.
They're a good guess in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure why they chose to do that in the movie, but I want to say it was to
excuse me,
maybe highlight the absurdity of what the character,
or to just kind of like heighten the level of,
or the mood, maybe
chaos. Yeah, obviously these two are in a very strong state of mental disarray.
I will say this: you guys could be right because it is very off-putting. Because like the music prior to it coming in, it doesn't prep you for it. There's no build to it. It just comes in, and it's jarring.
Yeah. And there is, you were talking about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia like moments. There's a moment right after where they're stalking the brother, where they suspect that he's going to show up at this group therapy session. And so they bust into the room, and they got like knives and pipes or whatever. They got weapons. They're like, we're ready to kill you. And
Charlie, cut his foot off.
right. And then the group therapy session's like, oh, he's not here. He's busy doing something else. And they just kind of awkwardly stand there as the group therapy session psychoanalyzes what they look like.
Right. Yeah. That was a cute little scene. In a sea of awkwardness and volatility. Is that a word? Volatility?
Volatility.
Because this film is it's aggressive. This is an aggressive film.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's also all over the place, probably because it is so aggressive.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Hulk. He's just this big nerve.
He doesn't know any better. I'm doing Linda Belcher. He doesn't know any better. It's gonna be all right.
The movie just loads a bunch of different.
All right.
It just loads a bunch of different ideas and tones and concepts into a shotgun and fires it at the wall.
Or into your face, really, yeah.
Or into your face, yeah.
Yeah.
Not all of them work, but some of them do. I said it on when we were watching it. I found it more enjoyable than American Sniper.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it more than this movie that came out a few years ago that has absolutely no.
Well, I would say this movie was I bet Peter Vack was the dummy baby that they used in American Sniper.
Wow.
Is that where we got that joke? Like, how did we end up tying those two movies together? How did we get to that point?
You said something like I don't know. I don't remember. I'm making fun of Peter Vack. I shouldn't be. He made an okay movie. It's just. I was just being a little, facetious or whatever. But
I'm kind of reminded. You're talking about the baby scene in the movie that a lot of people are comparing to American Sniper because it's written by the same people that just came out. And now that
Thank you for your service.
Yes, Thank You for Service. When I saw that, there is a scene in which a newborn baby is shown, and I was watching that with so much attention to detail to see if I could get any hint of it being like a ridiculously fake baby. And they used a real baby. It was obvious, and so
how hard is it to get a real baby?
Well, they had a real baby for American Sniper, and it had like a cold or something the day they're going to film that scene. So they brought in an emergency decoy. So had they had more time, they would have probably gotten a more convincing fake baby. But that was.
But it's Clint Eastwood, and he will not do retakes of anything.
Right.
Well, he's too old. I mean,
did the scene work? Okay, we're moving on.
He's got to go take a nap.
Well, actually, more specifically, he's got to go on the golf course because
your baby.
Oh yeah, he likes to do that.
Your baby has a cold, and it's not my problem. I have to take a nap by 4 p.m.
The reason why Clint Eastwood is such an in-demand director is because he makes he gets the movie done. He doesn't change the script. He shoots what he's got.
Stagehand, bring me my activity.
So he's reliable in that respect. And he will get the movie done quick and under budget. That's the thing.
Where's my Metamucil?
Old people jokes.
Yeah. We're all going to be old one day, so,
yeah.
And considering how long the people in his family live, I think Clint Eastwood could probably still kick all of our asses.
Is Hawk the baby of the group? Because I'm about to be 30 next year.
Yeah, I think I am.
Oh, boy.
Really? I always thought Bill Leon was the youngest.
Nope. I'm not. Okay. I'm 29.
Wow. That's all right.
Anyway,
we're going to talk about the finale of Assholes because it takes a complete left.
Let's call spoilers because I do think it is. It's earned, right? Like you sat through you sat through all this ballistic shit, and then they close it out with a joke, pretty much.
Yeah, it takes us spoilers again, of course.
Yeah,
it takes this crazy left turn almost out of nowhere, but you're expecting it because that's the gimmick of the movie, is that their faces are going to eventually turn into assholes, and that's exactly what happens.
Well, I wasn't aware of that going in, but
okay. Well, what happens is their faces, like at some point near the end, mold themselves into buttholes, and they're basically like face masks.
They have anus faces.
Yeah, they're basically like little masks they just put over their regular face, and it has an anus on it. And what's funny about them, what made me laugh anyways in a stupid way, was every time the guy breathes, his mask goes in, and then when it goes out, there's a little air hole that lets out the air.
Yeah.
It's like
I hate to be that guy, but they did steal that from South Park with the Tomlin.
Well,
yes,
but
that's very true.
This was more the actual assholes. That was more the butt cheeks.
But it was the same idea. Is like their mouth is the anus and it farts.
Right, but the ending, the finale of the movie, basically the whole third act,
it turns into Celebrity Rehab.
It turns into literally an episode of Celebrity Rehab, basically.
No, it's not Celebrity Rehab. What the fuck is it
called? A rehab show.
Yeah.
A rehab reality show with Dr.
Intervention?
Intervention. There you go. It turns into something like that, where it's like they interview them. They're like, oh, I live my life the way I want to live. And then they interview the parents, like, we're so ashamed. We want them back. And And then they do an intervention thing. And,
I do what I want.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it plays out. And then the movie just kind of ends.
Well, the parents...
Oh, no, it doesn't just end. I'm sorry.
The parents have butthole faces, and they're all sitting on toilets. There's 4 toilets.
No, the parents don't have butthole faces, but they're joining them
they're
on
still sitting on toilets, yeah.
The baby has a butthole face.
They end up... The couple end up going through the intervention, going through rehab, and getting clean. And then they have a baby, but they still have asshole faces, and so does the baby. And the parents are like joining them in perverse group shitting exercises.
Is that what that was supposed to be? Because I just thought it was like
a family portrait done on the toilet.
It's kind of like it's like the potty mouth Wes Anderson way to end your movie.
Yeah, kind of, because it goes to the end credits and then it cuts to...
It's this nice wide shot. Yeah, it's this nice wide shot of 4 toilets, and they're all sitting on the toilets, and it pans out. It's like the end of Rushmore or something. I'm cracking up just thinking about it.
It was actually kind of funny, but...
The end of the Life Aquatic, when they're just walking down the...
It is a wide pan out of... these people sitting on 4 toilets, and they get up, and then it's just 4 toilets, and they slow pan out. And it's
and it's a little weird. It's earned, but at the same time, it feels like you watch movies for all these years, and then you see something like this, and you're like, does that work as a movie? Because that's not how I understand movies previously. So it totally...
But it challenged you.
It challenges you a little bit, yes. But in my opinion, it's not a great film or anything. It's very muddled. Mud butt. It's very muddled. It's very aggressively so. It's very in your face, but it's also all over the place, just to be a Ryman Hyman, And I would recommend this film, but probably as a rental.
Yeah, it's not great, but it is interesting.
Yes.
I see Silvio first, and then watch this. But see Silvio first.
I wouldn't compare Silvio to assholes, but
they're both very low budget, and there is sort of an earnestness.
There is something to both movies that low budget, earnestness, vision. They're really trying. They're really being bold and going for it. And so I guess in that way, both movies are kind of kindred spirits, maybe.
Okay.
So perhaps.
So it seems like we have a pretty good start there. Let's move on to our next film that came out this weekend, which is Murder on the Orient Express.
All right, tell us about it.
Yeah.
So first of all, before I get into that, I want to say we have a rare instance of something that happened this weekend, which is Bill Leon actually saw this movie.
I went to go see this movie. I don't know why.
I did not see it.
I was literally, when we watched Assholes, making fun of how this is like a grandpa flick.
And then you went to the grandpa of... Oh, jeez, the grandpa of grandpa.
Speaking of grandpa.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, apologies for that. But yeah, it's definitely a grandpa-ish thing because it's based on a book that your grandpa probably read.
Mm-hmm. Takes place in, what, the 20s or the 30s?
Yes, the 1930s.
Okay.
And specifically 1934, although the year varies depending on the movie you're watching because they actually adjusted the date just in order to fit some character changes that they made. But anyway, so the plot of Murder on the Orient Express is very simple. Hercule Poirot has just finished a case that he was working in Jerusalem. And he traveled to Istanbul, and he needed to get to London. And to get to London, he took a train, and a murder occurs on the train. And the same day a murder occurs, the train gets stuck because of a snowdrift.
And his traveling on this train was supposed to be his cool down between cases. He was really adamant about, this is my holiday, don't bother me.
Exactly. And instead, it turns into what might be one of the most famous cases of his career, or infamous, one might say. Da, da, da.
Well, we'll get into that.
So anyway, first of all, before we get into the review of this movie itself, after watching this movie, I said, because I had seen both of the prior well-known versions of this. The
BBC TV show, the Poirot TV show?
Yeah, the long-running Poirot TV show for actually ITV in England.
Oh, okay.
Poirot, for those who don't know, the TV series ran from 1989 to about 2013, and there were 70 episodes total, and each episode was an adaptation of a Poirot story. So, in other words, if you watch from beginning to end, you will have essentially watched a filmed version of every single one of Agatha Christie's Poirot stories. Mm-hmm. It's kind of fascinating. I mean,
and they play out more like TV movies than episodes of a show, right?
Right. Well, the early episodes are like, your typical hour long, but they got longer and more epic as it went along. Mm-hmm. And very much, even from the beginning, they're pretty cinematic for a TV series. And of course, being a murder mystery, it's very accessible for those looking for just something where you can sit down and see a story from beginning to end in each episode.
Well, before we actually review the film, I'm going to let you continue, but I have something that I would like to talk about before. But
I'm going to let you finish.
You want me to do it now?
No, go ahead.
So I came home from this movie, and I had a DVD of Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet. And I put it on, and I'm sitting there watching, and I'm like, oh, the sets are really extravagant, and the costumes are great, and the actors are, they're great. But I'm like, something's off here. Something doesn't feel right. And it's like the scenes go on for like ages. And it's like, and I thought to myself, I was like, did he cut anything from this? Is this just verbatim the play?
Yeah, that's what it was advertised as.
Okay.
Unedited version of Hamlet filmed.
Okay. I was not aware of that. I watched it and I was just like, I kept asking myself, I was like, is this the most indulgent filmed version of Hamlet and on a mainstream level?
There's a reason. If you look at the runtime, you would have seen the.
It's like 4 hours long. Yeah. It's like 4 fucking hours long.
And it was filmed entirely in 70 millimeter, and yeah.
So I was definitely like, okay, so this I was aware of Kenneth Branagh from his role in Harry Potter, which is Gilderoy Lockhart. He's only in the second film, and he was the director of Thor. And I had heard of his Shakespeare adaptations and stuff, but I had never seen them in action. So after I watched Murder, I came home and I put that on, and I was like, this is so indulgent. and it's, you know, slightly over the top, but I guess that the material calls for it, so that's not so much a complaint. But I was just like, you have a real pacing problem here with this film.
Well, a pacing problem with Murder on the Orient Express.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I was referring to Hamlet, but we'll get to Murder on the Orient Express's pacing problems.
So I'm going to start off by saying the Poirot version from the TV series it's like an hour and a half long, so it's by far the shortest version of the story, and it's actually a very solidly acted and told version. There aren't a whole lot of big name celebrities in it, unlike the other two versions. The only other celebrity you'd recognize is the victim, the guy who gets murdered, is Toby Jones. And
nice.
It's a good performance too. I highly recommend that version, especially if you're looking for a more brief one. It's also, oddly enough, the darkest version because it really deals with the way the result of the murder, which. Spoiler alert.
Wait. Save the spoilers for like.
I wasn't going to say exactly what happened. Spoiler.
Well, I'm saying like we'll do. I do want to have a designated section for spoilers because I have a lot.
All I was going to say is the ending of all three versions of Murder on the Orient Express is the same.
That's not really a spoiler, but okay.
So anyway, what I was going to say is that. The TV version is probably the darkest because it really shows how this like affected Poirot's character, and it's carried on into other episodes of the series. But as a self-contained story and an introduction to the Poirot series, it's not a bad jumping in point. Meanwhile, you have the 1974 version with directed by Sidney Lumet.
Did he direct that? Okay.
Yeah, and it's
what you said 74, so this is before The Wiz.
Yes. Is that your only basis to go
by? Him in the 70s, yes. I know he directed 12 Angry Men.
Yeah. So that's like we were like talking earlier about like Richard Linklater. You mean the guy who directed Bad News Bears remake?
Yeah. That's the guy that directed The Wiz, right?
But the Sidney Lumet version of Murder on the Orient Express, it was actually Oscar nominated because Albert Finney plays Poirot, and it was really a solid performance. And Ingrid Bergman won an Oscar for supporting actress. It was also nominated for adapted screenplay, cinematography, costume design, original score. And though it got all these Oscar nominations, a lot of critics in retrospect have dubbed it one of Lumet's weaker films. And I am absolutely in agreement with that. It's really not one of Lumet's best films. For a film of the 70s, which films in the 70s had a much more leisurely pace.
Yes, I agree with that.
The pace of his version is just
meandering.
It's bad. Yeah. The biggest problem with the film that hurts the pacing, which and the new film is very leisurely paced in its own way too, but compared to this version, it moves like at a whip pace. And the funny thing is they're both about the same length, which is odd. But the difference is, in the 74 version, you've got this stunning cast of actors. The 74 version stars Albert Finney as Hercule Poirot, and also Lauren Bacall, Martin Balsam, Ingrid Bergman, Jean-Pierre Cassel, Sean Connery, John Gielgud, Anthony Perkins, Vanessa Redgrave, Richard.
Wait. Psycho Anthony Perkins?
Yes, Psycho Anthony.
Yeah, nice.
Huh. Okay.
And yeah, I'm not even done because Colin Blakely, Jeremy Lloyd,
Ken lost his place.
Seriously, the 74.
We're not reviewing the 74 film, so let's.
I know. Literally, every actor who is in that movie is amazing as an actor, except for the problem of the 74 version does not give a single goddamn one of them, except for Albert Finney, something to do.
Mm-hmm.
Their characters are barely they're there, but there's no interesting conversations. There's no like sidebars or anything. It's just like following Poirot, and Finney's performance is solid, but there's just nothing.
On the flip side of that, if you'd like to start talking about the new one, I didn't mean to
Yes,
cut you
I
off.
was about to. Yeah, go ahead.
In my opinion, this film kind of has an opposite problem where it tries to give every character something to do, but most of it doesn't pay off.
I kind of got that sense from the trailers. Is that it rammed a bunch of...
I feel like they should have. I feel like they should have cut a few characters because it. And again, my main issue with the film is the finale, the third act. We'll get to that, but I thought the first two acts were really well done. It's just, there's a whole sequence of him going around and interviewing all the people on the train, and it's like they're all sort of developed characters, but on a very base level. Like the guy, like the French guy who's like a dancer, and his wife, and it's like he's really angry and he has a temper problem and he beats people up, and I'm like, okay, what else do you have to tell me about him? And the answer is nothing.
Yeah, I agree with you. Those characters didn't, but like I would say the vast majority of the cast in the new film at least get a few.
They were trying.
Right, they get scenes where they at least get to do some acting. Sean Connery in the '74 version was at the height of his fame at the time. And goddamn, it's just like he's there for the paycheck. Period. And versus Willem Dafoe, for instance, has a very small role in this new film.
He's a standout.
I was going to guess that Willem Dafoe probably has 20 minutes of screen time in the new one.
Oh, that's actually pretty accurate. Yeah,
it's actually kind of generous. He's really not. Like as far as actual time where he's speaking, that's probably like 5 minutes. Max.
He was a standout performance. Daisy Ridley was a standout performance.
Isn't Daisy Ridley supposed to be some like middle-aged countess?
No.
Daisy Ridley's character is Mary Debenham.
But I mean, I was reading something about how her casting kind of stands out because the actress is 25 years old. And she's playing a character that's clearly supposed to be much older.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she plays the governess of the. She's a
governess. Okay.
Yeah, her character, the character she's playing is probably lower 40s, and Daisy Ridley is almost unrecognizable. It's actually really cool. I give a lot of credit there. Johnny Depp, I would say this is one of his better recent performances because this is a very acty kind of old school movie, and he gets a chance to do that kind of performance where he's just the creepy gangster guy, and he hits it very well, and it's entertaining.
I wonder why.
I would have liked to see him play off of some of the other actors more, but him and Kenneth Branagh have some great chemistry. And let's be honest here, Kenneth Branagh as Poirot. Am I pronouncing that right? Poirot. Kenneth Branagh is the glue as an actor that holds the shit together.
And I'm actually, you know what? I think he does a darn good Poirot. I was not looking forward to it because I didn't think that he was well cast in his own movie. But you know what? He did a damn good job.
I liked him. I found him charming. I thought his introduction, the case he's working on in the beginning, especially because it's in the Middle East, gave me like some light Indiana Jones vibes.
Yes, a little bit.
Does anyone go up to Poirot and say, "Hey, how about a little more face with that mustache"?
The mustache.
Lines where they mention the mustache.
Because even Agatha Christie has stated in her novels that the mustache is a what did she call it? The mustache was a deliberate thing, though. She gave him a huge one as a part of the character.
So the one thing I will say that Albert Finney did great in the '74 version, and the reason why I say his performance is great is Albert Finney in that movie plays a disgusting little man. I'm
gonna make a blind speculation here, speaking as somebody that does not know the works of either Agatha Christie or Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Okay.
I feel like the idea behind Poirot is to have Sherlock Holmes in the body of Watson.
You know,
Am I wrong?
No, that you're a little. So let me explain. Poirot is a figure who is incredibly obsessive compulsive, and from his outward appearance, he appears to most people almost comical. That's the way he's described.
And also, well, again, one of the great things about the intro to this character in the Kenneth Branagh film is you get to see how particular he is, and he's like basically an OCD case,
right.
You know, like they bring him several pairs of eggs, and he sends them away if the eggs are not at the same height as one another.
Which is that's right out of the book. So yeah, that's and now Branagh does not embody Poirot's physicality, but the character he gets. Now, I actually pulled up Wikipedia because there's a really good description of what Poirot's supposed to be. It says here from the book, his Poirot's often second banana, Captain Hastings, wrote this of him. He was hardly more than 5 feet 4 inches, but carried himself with great dignity. His head was exactly the shape of an egg, and he always perched a little on the side. His mustache was very stiff.
Price is egghead to play Hercule Poirot.
And this is what he says about the mustache. It says here, this is, even if everything on his face was covered, the tips of his mustache and the pink-tipped nose would be visible. So it's very, humorously kind of stereotypical, like, Belgian businessman is the way Poirot's described.
Yeah, I see that.
So anyway, that's the idea being is people outwardly would laugh at his appearance, and so they underestimate him.
Did you get, before the movie started, and it depends on like what chain of movie theater you saw it in, but before I saw the movie, it was like he addresses the people on the train, and he's like, "I am Hercule Poirot. I'm probably the greatest detective in all the world." And then there's a phone ringing, and then it just cuts to these reaction shots of people looking around. It's like, shut your phone off in the movie theater.
Oh no, our theater keeps playing the Thor one, and what was annoying is they even played it during like Thor before Thor Ragnarok, and I was like,
that played before the film, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you're seriously going to show us a clip from the film edited, and then you're
I felt that exact same way about this incident. I was like, that moment might have been cool if I saw it in the movie, but you kind of just spoiled it.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's I hate that. I wish they would just go back to showing other.
Shut your phone off. It should just be me. Shut your fucking phone off.
AMC finally changed their pre-show stuff, and it's a little more bearable now.
Oh, it's not the little ball things.
No, they've done away with little ball things.
Fuck those things.
Although I did. They did change it. One of the things they had was like swirls of magic and shit. Inside the swirls are images of people sitting down and watching a movie. And my thought was still, oh wow, it must be fucking nice to watch a movie and not all this other stuff. But at the very least, it's minutes. I know, and it's not that bad anymore because, like we talked about before, at AMC theaters prior to the movie, you get a thing saying like, "Oh, be careful if you see a terrorist, run out the front, the emergency exit."
Report it to, if you see a suspicious figure, report it.
Yeah. Or, to turn your phone off, that kind of thing. Then it has 20 minutes of commercials. Then it has, one more thing, whatever it is they're saying. And then it has little red balls doing their thing with a giant Coca-Cola cup. And it's just, by that point, it's just infuriating. Like, it's actively insulting that you aren't watching your movie yet. But they've truncated a little bit now, and it's just a different pre-show thing. It's a little less insulting.
So, Bill, I think it's time that we address the end of the film because you were talking about your issues with the final act.
So, I guess spoiler. Well, before we get into spoiler alert, let me go over the cast here. Michelle Pfeiffer was fine. Josh Gad was fine.
Josh Gad is an actor that consistently surprises me in movies.
I like Josh Gad, and it's not just because of his acting. He used, I don't know if he still does this, but he used to write little articles for New York Times, and I would read them in the paper when I I worked at McDonald's and we get the paper, and I would just read him. And he seems like a real intelligent guy, and I like him. In this film, so there's a scene where he's trying to burn some evidence, and he's running away in this cloak, and they get into this little scrap on the railroad tracks, and he falls off, and it's like, why would he choose now of all times to do that?
There were a couple scenes in the movie that felt to me like studio notes saying, we need
an action scene here. Yeah, we need a chase here. We need a stinger here.
We need a gunshot. Poirot has to get shot.
Oh, right. Yeah, that does happen. So, spoiler alert. From this point on, I guess we'll really get into it. The third act, spoilers. Johnny Depp is the one that gets killed in this movie. All of the people on the train, except for Poirot and the guy that gets him on the train.
The train director.
Yeah. Basically, all the passengers were part of this conspiracy to kill Johnny Depp. And they show a flashback in black and white. And he's staying in this tiny little compartment on this train. 12 of them are like shuffling in and out of this tiny compartment so they can each stab him once.
Which, by the way, these are luxuries because train compartments are small.
It's fucking comical. No one else on the train saw them do it.
They actually do explain that because they explain that because even the train conductor was in on it, and
they all had beef with the guy.
Were locked at night.
The idea of them taking turns stabbing him is silly.
Which, to be fair, that is
the way that they shot it. Is silly.
Well, every single version of Murder on the Orient Express has this problem, including the original book. In that the whole concept of the entire train managed to be in on the murder is it's kind of silly. It's an interesting surprise because you're not if you're not familiar with the story, you don't expect it to be, it's everyone.
I do see it. That makes sense, but I see what Bill's saying too. Is like, why couldn't one person have planted the knife and another person distracted somebody else in the train, and so on and so forth.
I mean, that does happen. That does happen. But when it comes to the killing, they felt the need to have everyone there and everyone get one stab, to the point that when they find the body, they're like, oh, there are 12 random stab wounds. It doesn't seem seem like somebody came in and started stabbing. It just seems like there are random stab wounds on his body.
Sounds like a fucking Monty Python sketch.
Well,
it sounds like the Departing Airplane, where everybody lines up to take turns to smack some sense into the panicky way.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay. So the TV movie version of from the Poirot series does this probably the best of any of them, because it really, when explaining how the murder happened and flashing back to it, Poirot, the way Poirot describes it and the way it's portrayed is every single person on the train who conspired to murder John Depp's, Toby Jones you get the point. They each had a very, very good reason to want to murder him, and it was turned into almost this ritual of like, all of us want to kill him, but we all want our shot. So they played out almost ritualistically, like everyone on the train was so wanting this person dead that they each demanded to have a chance to stab him.
I think that film wanted to portray that.
And you're right. The way they stage it is much more haphazard. I agree. That, in fact, the whole sequence, rather than staging it on the train, for some reason they're in the snow doing it, and there's a table there, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because they're in the middle of nowhere, and where'd that table come from? Did the steward set a table up just so that Poirot could announce who did it?
Well, that's a good point. But so that scene, I have more umbrage with that than I do with the flashback. So the first of all, before we get to that, the doctor character, who I think is Daisy Ridley's boyfriend,
Leslie Odom Jr.,
he tells Poirot straight up, "I did it," and he gives his motive for doing it. And then you, as an audience, you just accept that, and you're like, okay, he did it. But then 2 seconds later, Poirot is like, no, I have it figured out. That's not the answer. And you're like, what? Based on what?
Well, the thing about Poirot is he's always a step ahead of everyone. He's
okay. Again, like that Sherlock shit. I get it, but
like when he hears a confession, he immediately he takes the confession as just another piece of evidence to further build his case.
He takes about 5 years to explain the shit.
Yeah,
and okay, so yeah, this scene, the reveal scene, is just so problematic in my opinion. I felt like the score undercut the tension of the scene. I felt like Kenneth Branagh's speech should have been cut like by a few paragraphs because it goes on for so long and it's so drawn out. And by a certain point, you get it. Like you're like, okay, they were all in on it, but he's still going and explaining. You're like, I don't care. Get to the fucking finale.
The problem is with every single version of this story, including the book again, is when he gets to that point where he's explaining it, he has to go in and explain each person's motivations. And so basically you're seeing him go line by line, character by character, explaining their motivations and how all of them lead up into this big conspiracy. Which
do you agree with me about the score to that scene?
The score in the movie I've liked overall.
Not the movie, just that scene.
The scene was very much your typical like dramatic tension thing where it just like built and built and built. And I think it was you're right, it was unnecessary. In fact, it might have been more visceral if they had no score at all in that scene. And it was
I found the score very distracting.
That would have been interesting.
I'd like to ask you guys real quickly. You guys have seen The Hateful Eight, right?
Yes.
Okay, remember at the end after Kurt Russell's character, I guess spoiler, dies. Not that it's a spoiler. I mean, the movie's been out for a while. Sam Jackson has lined up the suspects. The rest of the people in the place besides Walton Goggins, and he's going through like why he suspects them. Was that scene better paced than the finale in the Kenneth Branagh Murder on the Orient Express?
It's interesting you mentioned that because definitely that
scene takes a while too.
Borrowed from that style of that mystery thriller kind of thing.
Right.
I'm gonna say yes.
I would say it's better paced. Yeah.
My reasoning of which is because that scene isn't so dialogue heavy. The Murder on the Orient Express, you're just waiting for Kenneth Branagh to stop talking.
Here's the thing. Despite the pacing issues in that third act, I overall thought this was a very enjoyable version of the film. And I think the most notable element is the camera work is really cool in this movie.
The special effects on the train are cool. The cinematography is inspired at times. There are some downright beautiful shots in this.
Oh yeah, it's yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Again, I really really liked the first two acts of this, and I didn't. My only real issue with the third act is the reveal, because like once that's all said and done, I was right back on board, and I especially liked how they kind of sort of lead into a possible sequel, even though that depends on how much money this makes.
Yeah, this movie has made double its budget already. It was made for $5
awesome.
million, and its box office it brought in 102.9. So yeah,
I would watch another one of these. I would totally watch another one of these.
Oh yeah, apparently the hint is that the next one would be an adaptation of the book Death on the Nile, which is also a really good.
So it won't take place on a plane? The Orient jet.
No,
Orient Airways.
It won't take place on the plane, just denial.
Oh man.
And the Nile is not just a river in Egypt.
Yeah.
Oh,
do they play the Imagine Dragons song from the trailer?
Yeah. Do they play that fucking song?
No, thank God.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think so. I don't remember any. There's a lot of 1920s jazz on the soundtrack to this.
Well, that's good.
I remember when the first trailer dropped, a lot of people were like, "Oh wow, that song was a really cool fit for that movie." And I said, "This is why we can't have nice things."
I agree. Yeah,
because fucking Imagine Dragons does not work for an Agatha Christie story.
No, and thankfully it doesn't. Honestly, though, while they may adapt another Poirot story, I I admit as far as Agatha Christie stories, I kind of love Miss Marple. Have you ever read Miss Marple mystery or seen any of the?
I don't read books.
Okay.
No, I'm more of an Aunt Jemima fan.
Well, the concept of Miss Marple is kind of endearing because it's about basically a little old lady who everyone just thinks is just, a senile old hag or something, who just happens.
What a bitch.
Yeah, and she just happens to, through folksy wisdom, be 10 steps ahead of everyone, like all mystery, characters are. But I enjoy the element of, everyone just thinks that she's just this crazy old lady. Even the police are like, yeah, we'll get right on that.
So for me, this was the first Kenneth Branagh film that I've seen that starred him. The only other one I've seen he directed was Thor. So, and that's a Marvel film, so it doesn't even really count. But I am interested to see more of his stuff, and I definitely get it. Like he's a little over the top.
Yes.
He's a showman, and I like him.
He was.
Didn't he also direct the Chris Pine, Jack Ryan movie?
Yeah. Well,
did he? Okay.
Let me put this out on Front Street, Bill. I know that Shakespeare Shakespeare can be challenging for people to watch, but I think probably my favorite filmed adaptation of Shakespeare. When I say favorite, I mean it may not necessarily be the most artistically great film adaptation of Shakespeare, but it's certainly the most fun to watch, is Much Ado About Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really funny story. It's got a great cast. Besides Branagh, Michael Keaton, Emma Thompson, Keanu Reeves is actually quite good in it. Denzel Washington. And really it's it's kind of like the original. People make a big deal out of A Midsummer Night's Dream being a great romantic comedy. Much Ado About Nothing kicks its ass.
Okay, I'm interested in that. I will say, when I had put on Hamlet the other night, I turned it off and put on Amadeus, which I don't know how related they are, especially in terms of time frame. But I was like, I want to watch something that's not fucking meandering and I don't know, like and then when I put it on, I felt better,
Right.
I was just like.
And if you want a dramatic version of Branagh at his best, Henry V, his debut as a director, and
how long is that one?
Henry V, it's a little over 2 hours. It's 137 minutes.
It's not indulgently 4 hours long.
Yeah, and Henry V is just badass because it's one of Shakespeare's most badass plays, and Branagh's performance in it is really crazy good.
And you get to watch the Harry Potter films eventually, not anytime soon, but you'll watch them.
I will devote a single week and I will just marathon them.
Well, the thing I think you'll enjoy the most about those films is that you'll notice all these like British character actors, and you'll be like, "Oh, I recognize that guy." Like
that's the fun part of those movies. Yeah,
Branagh's in
it. Yeah, Kenneth Branagh plays Gilderoy Lockhart in the second film, which is why like a lot of people my age and my friends, when I have to explain to them who Kenneth Branagh is, I'll be like, "He played Gilderoy Lockhart in Harry Potter." They'll be like, "Oh, okay."
Well, and Branagh certainly puts some of his favorite British actors, because Derek Jacobi shows up in
Jack Lemmon's in Hamlet. What the fuck?
Yeah, that was a weird.
Billy Crystal and Robin Williams are in his Hamlet.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's it's a huge cast. In case you haven't noticed, Hamlet's a pretty long friggin' play, and there's a lot of characters.
It is. And I mean, most plays are very long compared to film adaptations of them.
The Simpsons truncated it pretty good for like a good 8 minutes.
The Lion King. The Lion King. I mean, it's not exactly Hamlet, but it's pretty close.
I forget Hamlet.
They made the Lion King 1/2, and that was basically their Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Good stuff. There you go. I love that. And also, I know Ken and I know about this. There is a Star Wars version of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yeah, there is.
Tag and Bink, I think it's, or Binks. Is it Bink or Binks? I don't remember.
I think so. Yeah. It's
basically, yeah. It's these two stormtroopers who kind of decide at the beginning of A New Hope, they're like, "Fuck this," and they just like basically you follow them.
They're responsible for everything that fucked up the Empire.
Yeah.
and a lot of other events too.
What's this called?
Tag and Bink or Tag and Binks. It's like Jar Jar Binks, but I think it's Tag and Bink.
Tag and Bink. Tag and Bink.
Okay.
I'm going to type it in the chat. There you go.
Yeah, it's a series of comic books that called Tag and Bink. Actually, I think the first issue was called Tag and Bink Are Dead, which of course Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead is the parody about that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so we've talked far too long about this. Let's move on. Bill Arsenault, you saw Lady Bird.
Yes, I did.
Which is all King of the Hill's dog.
Well, you know where he got that name from? It was right. I had just seen LBJ. We reviewed it last week, and now I'm watching Greta Gerwig's debut feature, Lady Bird, which has nothing to do at all with President Johnson. Really, it's just except that name. Right. This movie takes place in 2002. Those fresh-eyed days post 9/11, immediately post 9/11, but pre-Iraq War, where we were afraid but not sure where to direct it exactly. So we were just huddling around the president hoping for some kind of peace of mind. This takes place in Sacramento, California, where a sort of, not, I wouldn't say lower class, but definitely, an economically struggling family led by Laurie Metcalf and Tracy Letts. They are trying to raise their daughter, Saoirse Ronan, who plays Lady Bird. Her real name, I believe, is Christine. And she is a senior in high school. This movie takes place during her senior year. And she goes to school at this Catholic, or I think it's Catholic. It might just be some general Christian high school, but I want to say it's Catholic because there are nuns and there's fathers and that whole thing. And it's basically the school year in her life where she essentially comes of age, really, and matures from this selfish, kind of rebellious little brat who's not. She's not. It's not that she's okay. Brat is a little too much, but she is a little self-centered when it starts. Probably because she's wanting to escape Sacramento. She kind of resents her hometown because nothing really happens there, as she puts it. She's like, Sacramento. She says something like Sacramento is the something of California, the Midwest of California, or something. And I thought that was a funny line. She gets involved. She tries to spruce up her college resume by getting into theater arts, acting in some, high school plays. And she even starts dating one of the actors. And slowly but surely, she ends up falling in with the wrong crowd. And the movie's narrative isn't really like there's a goal. Like, there is a goal. The goal at the end of the road is for her to get to college and to end the school year right. But it's not. It's almost like a series of events that happened. It's not really like, a week or two in her life where it's all structured very well. It's more.
It kind of has that. It has that kind of listless indie film feel to it.
Yeah, like we get a peek at 1 week, a peek at the next week, a peek at a weekend, a peek at this day, a peek at that day, that kind of thing. And it's not like it's titled that way, like this is weekend 3 or weekend. It's not like that, but it does jump around time a little bit. But it's all forward. It's all moving forward to the end of the school year. And the movie is very much about her relationship with her mother, Laurie Metcalf, which is a little antagonistic They both clearly love each other, but they. What was that?
That was an autoplay video that popped up on Facebook, and I just stopped it. God
Good.
damn it! Yeah.
Bill, your conversation is so riveting.
Yeah, no, I seriously didn't even notice that it was. I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice the Facebook was on. I was actually looking here on, in the Google Hangouts, and suddenly I just started hearing noise, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
That's okay. That's okay. Well,
Cards Against Humanity buys Mexico border wall. Play video. that seems interesting.
Donald Trump drinks Fiji water.
I don't even know why you guys are able to hear that because I have my headphones in.
It was very weird. Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe your headphones aren't plugged in.
No,
they
are literally plugged in.
So back to the story of Hank Hill's dog.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yes, get back to Lady Bird. This is a very strong and impressive debut feature from Greta Gerwig, which is not surprising. She's written a couple of Noah Baumbach movies.
This is Frances Ha? Is this the same chick?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Mistress America. Yeah, definitely. And I kind of compared this movie to, believe it or not, to Wizard of Oz in a lot of ways, specifically the Dorothy and the whole "there's no place like home" thing.
Right.
That's kind of what the movie is going for. Not specifically Wizard of Oz, but it is going for that whole, everything I wanted was over there, really. I didn't have to go seek it elsewhere. I could have really just, taken care of everything at home.
Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, definitely. I would say Wizard of Oz because it just immediately made me think of Dorothy. She's, Lady Bird isn't necessarily as innocent as Dorothy. Lady Bird's very much wanting to rush into maturity.
We've got to get out of here, Toto. I can't do a good Judy Garland. Can anybody do a good Judy Garland?
That wasn't a good Judy Garland in any respect.
Well, I gotta get out of here,
Toto. Like,
ATM.
No, that's not. No, it's just stop.
Hey, Toto, we gotta get out of here. I got no respect at all.
that's just Ronnie Dangerfield.
Scarecrow, you got no brains in your head.
Can you do Trump as Dorothy?
Yes.
Obviously. That'd be like
okay, Toto.
Somewhere over the rainbow.
Somewhere over the
rainbow. There's a pot of gold. My father took it, and that's how he started his fortune. He went over the rainbow. He kicked the shit out of Toto. He punted him like a field goal.
Somewhere over the Mexican wall, which I'm going to build, it's going to be beautiful, and they're going to pay for it.
Someday there will be a wall.
So anyway, Lady Bird, the character Lady Bird, she's very much wanting to grow into womanhood a little too fast, a little too quickly. So much so that she ends up kind of abandoning her friends and family at different spots in the school year. She eventually, of course, realizes, where she went wrong in a few places, but she does it in her own way. The movie treats her very, very well. Like, I don't really want to say this movie is like tender or light, because there is a what's the right word? It's not perky, but it's like chutzpah. There's a certain bravado that she has, like a certain wit about her and charm that's a little strong-willed. I'm talking, of course, of the performance of Saoirse Ronan as Lady Bird. This is a very inspired performance, by the way. In fact, I would say all the performances in the movie are pretty good, but this one in particular, she's coming close to the age where she can the actress is coming close to the age where she can't play high school students anymore. She's getting into you look more like a college student age, which makes sense because the movie, is about her advancing to college. And she wants to go to the East Coast. She's like, I want to get as far away from Sacramento as possible, and that's what the movie's about, essentially. There's an interesting performance in the movie from Lois Smith, who was in Marjorie Prime. She plays a nun at the school, and it's not a big performance. It's not a big role even, but she spends a couple minutes in the movie the time she has in the movie, making the most of it and making an impact, specifically in Lady Bird's life. There's the scene where it's just her in her office with Lady Bird, and she's like, she basically says, "I caught you playing this gag on my car." What she did earlier in the movie, Lady Bird did, was she put a bunch of strings and cans attached to cans on the end of her car, the nun's car, and it said, "Just married to Jesus."
Lady Bird, get away from that car.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I don't know if it was that easy.
It's gonna be that easy.
Oh, okay. Well, she did that, and the nun's like, "Look, I know you did the gag, but it's okay because we all laughed at it. We thought it was fucking hilarious, that kind of thing." She's a nun who kind of gets what it's like to be Lady Bird, probably because she was just like Lady Bird, or she knew someone like Lady Bird, and she gives this wonderful line. I can't quite recall the exact phrases she says, but she basically lays out this interesting philosophy for living and for growing that Lady Bird uses in the rest of the movie. It's like her moment of clarity, so to speak. And I think giving Lois Smith that important of a role to go for, is pretty speaks volumes, really, for Lois Smith's ability to deliver dialogue. She does it in a very motherly way, so I just really appreciated that, or grandmotherly way, if you want to put it, even further. But that's not, to say anything bad. Overall, I love this movie. This is definitely one of the strongest and smartest films you're probably going to see all year.
Where'd you see it?
Where'd I see it? I saw it at a press screening.
Okay.
It's coming out this weekend, but it was like yesterday morning I saw it. And I don't know where it's going to rank for me. It's possible this might be a movie that gets pushed just barely out of my top 10. But at the same time, it reminded me a little bit of Saved. Do you remember that movie with Macaulay Culkin and Mandy Moore?
I never saw that. Is that worth watching?
Yeah, I would say so. It's not terrible. It's not like the greatest thing ever, but it's a nice little comedy.
I remember the marketing. The marketing for it was kind of like, this is raunchy as fuck.
No, it's definitely not a raunchy movie.
Oh, okay.
There's some punk elements to it, but it's not.
Okay.
It's more like punk in how some of the kid characters are. Like they want to wear their hair a certain way, that kind of thing.
I've been curious about it, so yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah, so Lady Bird is similar to that, but it's a lot more. I don't want to say heartwarming because that's not the word I want to go for. It's more. I don't know. I guess it's more. It's got more personality, for sure. It's got more of a head on its shoulders. Saved is not a bad film, and this certainly is not a religious film or taking place like prominently in the religious community, but it does involve a little bit of aspects of Catholicism and faith, specifically faith, and how that can inform on one's life, especially going into college and becoming an adult. So I would highly recommend this. This might end up being a Dark Horse nominee during award season, but honestly, it should be right up there with the top contenders in my opinion.
Do you guys hear Golden Globes nominated Get Out for Best Comedy?
They haven't nominated it yet. They've only they said they're going to consider it, but only under Best Comedy.
Yeah, because it was satire.
It's not a comedy. It has comedic elements, but it's
right. Even fucking Jordan Peele's like, dude, the things this movie's about is not funny.
Yeah.
I have opinions about that, but this isn't the time or the place.
Race isn't funny. The issue of racism isn't funny. He's not saying the movie you can't have laughs in it. He's not saying that. He's just saying the issues aren't funny.
I don't even know why I'm getting bent out of shape out of this. The Golden Globes haven't been relevant ever, so whatever.
I think the fact that it's just kind of a satire is what made them do that, but really
I can see
more of a drama, but I think maybe that could be a play to give the Get Out might win the Golden Globe for Best Comedy because something else is going to win it for Best Drama, and this is going to be how Get Out will win a Golden Globe.
Sure.
Which, the Golden Globe. I mean, the Hollywood Foreign Press. Who cares about what they have to say anyway? So
certainly, Bill Leon doesn't. He just walked away.
Exactly. So we'll go ahead and move on because I definitely want to see that movie.
This weekend, if you are burnt out by the superhero genre in any way, shape, or form, go check out Lady Bird.
Will do.
Yeah.
So speaking of superheroes, Hawk, you recently watched a movie about a villainess, didn't you?
Yes. This movie has been on my radar for a very long time. It is a South Korean action revenge thriller, which is one of my favorite genres, as you guys know. It involves a female assassin who she is in the middle of a hit, is arrested, and the South Korean special forces recruit her. They say, you will be our sleeper agent for the next decade, and then once you're done doing that, you will live a normal life with a new identity and be free with a pension, and you can just move on with your life. But for right now, we need your skills. So she kind of gets her own identity, and she kind of incorporates herself into a civilian life with, the caveat being that at the call of the special forces, she has to go and kill somebody. So it's kind of like this a mix of her life as an assassin working for the South Korean special forces with the domestication of her, finding a relationship with another character and trying to raise a daughter. So those things kind of interplay with each other, along with a lot of plot twists. And it has that standard South Korean flavor of plotting where it gets very, very convoluted and complicated with lots of characters and events and nonlinear storytelling. Which it seems like all of them do that for some reason. And this one,
it's like Bollywood. There's very specific things that they like to see in their movies.
And if it sells, it sells. Keep doing it.
This one didn't bounce all that quite as well. Like about halfway through, I started to get a little bit confused over all the it keeps jumping back and forth between timelines. Well, not timelines, but when something happens, she flashes back to something that was involved with her training as a young girl when she was training to be a killer. So basically, she is. This is basically the South Korean revenge thriller version of Slumdog Millionaire in that respect. But that kind of made for some interesting stuff, where the police chief lady that's in charge of her has the table with these two women facing each other and a disassembled gun on the tables in front of them, and the winner, quote unquote, of this test is the first person to assemble their gun and shoot the other person.
Yeah.
And she flashes back. Yeah, she flashes back to an exact same situation when she was younger, when the guy who was taking care of her had her do the same thing. So the biggest hallmark of this movie by far is the action. I mentioned in the chat, like if someone were to wander into the room during the opening scene, they would probably think that it was the finale. Mm-hmm. Think of the hallway fight scene from Old Boy, but with knives and in first person. It just,
nice.
It's
Hardcore Henry.
Yeah, it's but more coherent than Hardcore Henry. Mm-hmm. Beautiful cinematography too. Like this opening scene, it's one like 6-minute unbroken first person take of just killing and blood spraying all over the place and slicing and punching and shooting and all kinds of shit. But it feels more graceful than Hardcore Henry did. Whereas Hardcore Henry, honestly, kind of gave me a headache, as it did probably most people that watched it.
Yeah.
I think home video. I watched it on home video, so I didn't really have that problem. But because if at any point I wanted to shut it off, I could just shut it off.
Sure, yeah, it's not quite as invasive of all your senses as it would be on a big screen.
Yes.
But yes,
I saw it in the theater, and I didn't have that issue.
Oh, really?
Well, actually, no, I did. Now that I recall, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
When I saw Murder on the Orient Express, my friend has an app that apparently people log when a good point in a movie is to go pee. Did you guys know about this?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Time to pee.
Is that what it's called? Okay, yeah. No, like I had asked, he told me about the app, and then I was like, I gotta piss, and I was like, yo, let me know when that thing says it's good to go piss.
Yep.
What I'm curious, what was happening when?
Is that the story? Or?
Yeah, in the story.
Yeah, when do you piss
I
during Hardcore Henry?
No, not during Hardcore Henry. It was during Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, Murder on the Express. Okay.
It was when, right around the time they find the body, I think. I don't remember exactly what happened after I left because apparently it wasn't much. But it's like they're about to go into Michelle Pfeiffer's room.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's when the interviews start. And you're right. That's one of the drier parts of the movie.
That's probably a good point to take a piss.
I honestly, I'm against taking a pee break during a movie unless it's a deathly emergency. But that's okay. Whatever. Do what you got to do. Just ruining the movie.
Hey, what if it was the 4-hour Hamlet? Right? I gotta take a piss.
No, right. You hold it, man.
No, what is this?
Or actually, no. We're talking about old school movies. A movie that's that long has an intermission.
Yeah.
Should, anyways. Yes.
And if it doesn't, then they're not doing it right. They forgot how to show a good old movie.
Batman v Superman. Oh, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Batman v Superman, ladies and gentlemen.
Batman v Superman coming soon to a theater.
Any other thoughts on the villainous? Do you have more to say?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Okay, I just didn't want to
go for it. Yeah.
Sorry, by the way.
It's the action is just astonishing, and the cinematography is incredible, especially during the action scenes. There is an action scene that involves sword fighting on motorbikes. Like they're on these like sleek motorbikes racing through a tunnel, fighting with swords. And the way that the scene is set up is that they're ahead. They got their backs to you driving down, and the camera races forward, slides between two, and then goes underneath the wheels of the one in front and comes up in front of them, all in one fluid take as they pull out their swords and start fighting. And I would love to see a making of video on that because I really can't tell how they did it. It's like in the Raid 2 during the car chase, there's a making of clip of that where the one guy, a cameraman on a motorcycle, drives forward next to a car, passes the camera off to a guy in the car who then passes it off to somebody on the other side of the exterior of the car. And you can kind of tell that. Yeah, you can kind of tell it from the way the camera wobbles a little bit, but it's still a pretty awesome, creative way to stage a shot. But with this, I really have no idea how they did it because it definitely does not look like CGI. In other moments, there are really long fluid takes going down hallways and through rooms. And some of those you can kind of tell when they cut it. Like, what, the camera moves towards a closed door and the door opens and there's a new room on the other side. And obviously they cut right there. But there's a grace to the way the camera moves that really kind of, instead of saying, oh, I can spot the cut, it's like, I really like how they handled that cut. As a lot of fight scenes are very, very close and in your face, kind of very invasive in terms of how close it is to the main actress as she like stabs a guy with her hairpin and just blood is just dripping onto the camera lens. And it's an incredibly visceral movie. But of course, the only problem with that is that every time the movie slows down a little bit and takes a break from the action, all you want is more action because the story itself has that very convoluted South Korean style to it, and it doesn't quite work on the same level as the action does because there's always that downbeat where you're waiting for it to kick back into gear again. So the pacing kind of suffers there, and then at one point I just kind of lost track of the plot, and it finally, in the last 20 minutes, it has another awesome action scene of two characters fighting on the outside of a building, just hanging on to something as it's crumbling around them. It's just really cool ways they stage the action and the camera work, and I'd love to see. Let's see who did the choreography for this. The director was Byung-gil Jung, who did Confessions of a Murderer.
Jean Valjean.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
And I'm Javert.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I'm saying it wrong, but
yeah, we think you are too.
I'm going. I just kind of really quickly pulled what I knew of South Korean pronunciation because I had a couple of South Korean friends in college. I know I didn't get it quite right. I know I'm partly right on that though. But anyway, I want to see who did the cinematography for this movie because I want to see more of his work because it was really, really clever. But do you guys have any other questions about it?
No, I'm interested.
Yeah, the pacing is the problem. It's maybe a hair too long, but when I was looking for a movie to watch today, it came down between this and Takashi Miike's newest movie, Blade of the Immortal.
Oh,
which I'm really excited for. And Blade of the Immortal was about a half hour longer, so I decided not to do that one.
Yeah, it's Takashi Miike. His movies are insanely long usually.
And what I've read about Blade
And
of the Immortal is like
insane.
it's just another samurai movie, just like all of them, but it's a good one because it's Takashi Miike.
Mm-hmm.
This is the cinematographer who I don't recognize any of his movies. So,
Huh.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll keep an eye on him anyways because there was some. I think one review put it really well for The Villainess is that if you don't really care about seeing the revenge story, you may be better served by just watching a supercut of the action on YouTube. But I would still recommend seeing it just because there are some interesting elements to the plot and the revenge aspect and how it kind of unravels itself and how sinister things can eventually get with it. So I enjoyed it nonetheless. It's just only available for purchase right now on Amazon for $10, which I wouldn't consider that wasted money. I'll watch it again. But if you have the option to rent it, I would rent it first.
All right, fair enough.
That's what I have to say on The Villainess.
All right, so the next movie on our list is the second film in what is now the end of a series, which basically is a throwback to the classic Batman TV series with Adam West and Burt Ward. Last year, there was direct-to-video that DC released Return of the Caped Crusaders, and they released now Batman versus Two-Face. Now, Bill, you saw.
I watched both of them. Yeah, I watched both of them today. So I feel like this will be a little bit of a joint review, but I won't focus on Cape Crusaders so much. I do have a little bit to say about that, but
So you thought it was enjoyable, Hawk?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than Cape Crusaders.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I agree with that, but in a different way.
I think that Cape Crusaders had a more fulfilling story, but I think Two-Face had a couple of moments that I liked more.
Interesting.
I'm gonna say this about Cape Crusaders, which is that I felt like story-wise, it felt like a multi-part episode of that show. It never really took the story to a cinematic place, which I do think the actual film based on that show did do, Batman the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But Cape Crusaders had a lot of nice little meta moments that I really appreciated. Like when Batman starts to go evil in that film, he starts to act more like the more modern interpretations of Batman that we see. There's a scene where he exits the room and no one notices, and they're like, well, that's not like him.
Yeah.
Right. There's a great moment that I mentioned in our Facebook chat about Catwoman at the end of the movie. She's like, I'll go good, or I'll turn myself in on one condition, Batman, that you and I run away to Europe and we sip tea in a nice cafe. And then it cuts to Robin, and he says, "Wholly unsatisfying ending."
Yeah.
And I immediately, like, it took my brain a second, but I was like, oh, The Dark Knight Rises. I get it. That's funny.
Maybe the reason I love the the Return of the Cape Crusaders one most, because I enjoyed Batman versus Two-Face, but I actually prefer the one that came out last year, is probably because of the digs against the other iterations of Batman.
Well, it's so funny because, and I think maybe this was out at the time, but when we reviewed Suicide Squad, I had made a comment about, like, oh, they need to take Batman back to the 60s, and I had mentioned Cesar Romero playing the Joker, and I don't think that they used clips from the original actors. I think that is the voice actors impersonating the laughs of, like, Cesar Romero and Frank Gorshin, and
they
those
do a good job, though.
They are so spot on with the laughs, not so much with the dialogue, but the laughs are, like, unrecognizable.
Yeah.
And yeah, and regardless, I mean, both of the films are good, but let's focus on Batman versus Two-Face, which is noteworthy, first of all, for not just having Burt Ward and Adam West return, but also Two-Face is played by William Shatner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really like the idea of this, which is that the idea is, what if Shatner played Two-Face on that show back in the day?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way they presented this, first off, I think the story plays from A to B less episodically than it does in Cape Crusaders.
I'll agree with that.
And that's okay. So my thing is like, anything I'm saying is not a dig at Cape Crusaders, because I enjoyed watching it, but the Two-Face one felt more like a movie to me.
Surprised with the quality animation too.
Yeah. Oh, the Harvey Dent looks just like Shatner back in the 60s.
Yeah. That was really cool.
I don't know. I mean, the animation's kind of choppy. It's very TV budget animation.
Let me ask you guys this.
It is, of course, a direct to DVD movie. So
for both of the films, when they cut to the end credits and it's like the animators replicating Batman dancing,
the Batusi, yeah,
that puts such a smile on my face.
Yes.
I don't know about you guys. Just both of them. Both of them have him. I mean, the second one has a bunch of other characters dancing, whereas the first one, it's just him and Catwoman.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But that was it was a very, it was almost kind of sad because, Adam West passed away. It's kind of like, oh, that's the last time we're going to see that.
But what a swan song, though.
I watched Two-Face. I watched Two-Face to the end credits, and once the credits run, it says "in loving memory of Adam West," and I legit got a little choked up.
Yeah,
they say something else too. They said they say something else like what did they say? It's like Godspeed or like I don't know. It was something really really nice. Like,
I didn't see that.
It sounds like it would be out of a Batman cartoon.
Maybe the streamed version that I watched cut that out. But
old chum? I don't know.
No. What does he say? Oh boy. Anyway, so
I can find it really quick while you talk.
There's a great. I do kind of like how they play off memes in these movies, because there's a great part in Return of the Cape Crusaders where when Batman is starting to become evil, he's like beating up the Joker, and he's like, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts."
Yeah.
I was like, I can't believe they did that. That's kind of cool. In this film, in the Two-Face film, he slaps the shit out of Robin. And like that meme. It is such a direct translation of that meme that, like, it just put a little smile on my face. I'm like, this is so fucking meta that it's like watching Lego Batman. It's like, what is there not to like about this? It's fun.
Yeah. One thing I enjoyed was the not too subtle comments that insinuated that some people think question Batman and Robin's actual relationship with each other. Yeah, and in general, gay panic jokes are a little bit played out in Hollywood, but I don't know. There's something about the fact that the way it's played out in this, it worked, and it didn't feel as tired as those normally do.
The ambiguously gay duo.
Well, yeah, and well, first of all, I do gotta say, like, when I first started Return of the Cape Crusaders, and like they do establish, like, Robin's not any older; he is supposed to be a teenager. Mm-hmm. There are multiple people that just slug him right in the face in both of these films.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, I just have to say this. Because Adam West, of course, always sounds like Adam West, and even older Adam Wests. But Burt Ward, the dude's 72, and he still sounds like the little youngster.
Okay.
Robin, doesn't he?
I was not in love with Lee Merriweather, which I'm sorry. I understand.
You're talking about Julie Newmar as Catwoman.
Oh, I'm sorry, Julie Newmar.
Lee Merriweather does make a cameo in
I love that scene.
Yeah, the scene where basically Catwoman escapes and locks the other the secretary woman in the jail and puts her Catwoman suit on her. That was Lee Merriweather. So.
Oh, I did not know that, but I was actually referring to, there's a scene in Cape Crusaders where Batman gets whacked over the head and he's looking at Catwoman and he sees Eartha Kitt Catwoman and Julie Newmar Catwoman and Lee Merriweather Catwoman, and he's like, 3 Catwomen? What the fuck?
Yeah, they don't talk in that, but in this case, they actually got Lee Merriweather to do a quick voice performance, and so
they do talk. They do talk in that scene, but it's actually it's not. Eartha Kitt died in 2008, so obviously it's not her. I did not know, but yeah, that's again. I think the Two-Face film kind of took the criticisms towards the first one. Not that the first one was bad, but the first one did feel a little episodic. It felt more like a multi-part episode of that show. The second movie, in my opinion, feels more like a whole story. And it might not be, I don't know. I don't want to say it's not as entertaining. It might not be as funny or as quippy with the jokes.
Right.
But I felt like the story from A to B worked better as one whole piece.
Yeah, I enjoy both of them. I just, I like the jokier nature of the first one a little more, but that's not even a criticism of this because I thought it was a great continuance. And now I agree with you as far as like I understand that Julie Newmar. The unfortunate thing about aging is that you can never predict how your voice is going to sound when you're much older. And here's the thing: I'm not bothered by the fact that she voices Catwoman, even though the voice is clearly a much older woman.
It's what does Red Letter Media call it? Red Letter Media has called it the Karen Allen effect.
Except here's what I'm going to say: the entire purpose of this series is to throw back to the originals, and I think it would be disingenuous.
Was she was only in the movie though, right?
No, it was Lee Merriweather who was in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Lamar was the primary Catwoman.
Okay.
The thing they said at the end for Adam West was "Rest well, bright night."
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that. Okay, that's sweet. Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like you can tell the people when they actually finish this and put it together. Adam West was dead, so there's a lot of love there. It's great that his final role was a starring role, like a lead role,
and not only that, but a tribute to the role that he made most famous. I mean, I would argue that you wouldn't even have.
No, you're right. You're absolutely. I know exactly where you're going with this, and you're right.
You wouldn't have a Tim Burton Batman without because Batman became a household name in I'm not just talking comic book nerdity. I'm talking a household name in the terms of like the general public as a result of the Batman series.
Batmania and Beatlemania were maybe not on par, but pretty equal. Like it was huge, that show.
And the thing is, the show was the funny thing about that show is how it's changed in the way critics have viewed it. Because at the time, critics hated the show and dismissed it as being too kiddish. But you watch it nowadays and you realize that there were so many jokes in that went over the heads of people and were actually really smartly written. And it was because the show was a comedy first and foremost, and the fact that it was slightly cartoony that made the critics underestimate it.
I've been meaning to sit down and watch that show in its entirety. I am in the process of working through Batman the Animated Series, which is there's a lot of that to go through. So.
Now, the one unfortunate thing about the Batman live action series is the final season. Their budget was slashed very heavily, and they had a lot of restrictions. The final season is really not up to the snuff of the rest of the show. But there's a ton of great episodes either way. And I also have to say Batman vs. Two-Face did bring back my favorite villain from the series, which is King Tut.
King Tut is in the first one in Cape Crusaders, but I don't think he has any lines, does he?
No, he's just
I don't think so.
He's there.
It is one of my favorite moments in Batman vs. Two-Face during the police interrogation scene. Where Tut
where O'Hara's just
out
of him.
Well, he switches to his criminal alter ego when he gets hit in the head, and he forgets everything else that happened before then. So basically, the officer smacks him in the head to bring back King Tut and interrogate him. Then King Tut smacks himself in the head to turn back into the professor, so they won't have to volunteer any information. And it's really funny.
It goes back and forth
gag.
to a point until Batman is like, "Stop this! It's madness."
And they even turn it into a little piece of police brutality commentary, because that ends up costing them the conviction in court.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
the
officer break down, and he's like, "Oh, it's all true."
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
like
the quality, maybe, I don't know, because again, like Return of the Cape Crusaders is very entertaining, but this film, I think, story-wise, worked better as one whole story.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm not debating that either, and it was very
Shatner. We haven't really talked much about Shatner.
What I liked is it's actually a fairly reserved performance. He's not going full Shatner in it.
No,
right.
No. And in fact, like when he's Harvey Dent, he comes off as like really sweet and innocent.
Mm-hmm. Which I thought was good, because if he had gone full Shatner, the whole point of it would have been like the entire point of watching this would be to see Shatner be Shatner, as opposed to just watching a fun Batman story.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't upstage the story, and don't get me wrong, I like Shatner. I think he's funny. Mm-hmm. But he has a tendency to upstage things with his personality sometimes.
It is an interesting stuff with the Two-Face character, regardless, though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, well the whole concept of of Two-Face's multiple personalities, and how he's legitimately a good guy on one side, but he's just. I think it's interesting because it's a complete change of pace from the Nolan Two-Face, which is a good person who's pushed to the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face, which is just over the top all the time.
Because Tommy Lee Jones has no idea what Two-Face was, and going in and.
Well, wasn't that a result of him that was directly him just trying to upstage Jim Carrey?
I don't know about that. From what I heard, Tommy Lee Jones had no knowledge of like the Batman comics or
I read something about those two not getting along very well on the set at all, and then maybe unrelated, Jim Carrey was so wacky that Tommy Lee Jones had to match that same level of wackiness, and so of course that's not who Two-Face is.
You sunk my battleship. Who?
In regards to the Schumacher Batman films, Two-Face was probably supposed to be portrayed like he was on the animated series, because if you look at Batman and Robin, they took Mr. Freeze's backstory directly from the animated series.
Yeah, and it's oddly it's weird, because it makes those scenes in Batman and Robin oddly dramatic, not effectively, but oddly dramatic considering the tone of the rest of the movie.
Right.
Yeah, and
remember how Vivica A. Fox was in it for like 2 seconds, and that made no sense.
Oh, right, yeah. She's his little snow wench.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she had a whole bunch of stuff cut out of that movie apparently. Mm-hmm. But from what I hear, though, Joel Schumacher,
writer of The Wiz, directed by Sidney Lumet.
Wow, full circle,
bringing it all together.
Oh man. Anyway, so now that we've kind of talked over the Batman series, we have a guest who's joining us on this episode today.
Oh.
And so we'll get to the guest in a moment, but I'll just introduce him. He's the one man in the world who still has faith in the DCEU.
I took off my Gravity Falls hat and I put on my Superman hat. I don't know if you don't have your mics on, but look at that. Superman, he came back. He's coming back. Justice League comes out this weekend. I'm very excited, you guys.
Are you?
Sorry.
Absolutely. He is more excited than anyone has ever been excited for.
Clearly.
Movie Boozer's own Will Ashton did not like it.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But did he like Suicide Squad?
I don't think so.
Did he like BVS?
I don't believe he did.
Fake news. The DC movies, there's a definite conspiracy. The critics are out to get DC, they don't want these movies to do well. They're Marvel fanboys. I don't.
Or counterpoint.
Mhm.
There is a distinct through line in terms of all of the DC movies.
No.
In that there's a studio that responsible for them is driving them straight into the fucking ground.
No.
Well, look
I
how
disagree.
good Wonder Woman was.
Listen,
A movie which apparently Warner Brothers had very little
Wonder Woman
involvement
was,
in terms of
Wonder Woman was the greatest film that was ever made. I haven't seen it yet, but it doesn't matter. People liked it, and it's the best. Suicide Squad got an Oscar. Need I say more?
That's
DC,
true. It did get an Oscar.
It got an Oscar, and Jared Leto has an Oscar. And,
Do you have an Oscar, Hawk?
Not yet.
So the next
I have
film,
a copy of Schindler's List.
well, that won Oscars.
Oscar Schindler. Yeah, there you go.
I have a copy of Birdman.
oh.
That won an Oscar.
I don't remember Avengers Age of Ultron getting any Oscars, and
That's because Avengers Age of Ultron is a piece of shit.
that movie was terrible. And Man of Steel is
Wait a minute,
better.
Didn't we give it an okay review on the show?
I think
What?
that you guys did, and that makes you hypocrites.
Age of Ultron.
And
We gave it an okay review on the show.
I did not. I don't think.
Oh, okay. Well,
I think I had some pretty serious problems with it.
all right.
I remember being bored, actually. But I do remember giving a positive review to Man of Steel. In fact, I distinctly remember in June of that year, during our midway top fives of the year so far, Man of Steel was my number 5. So
Bill Arsenault put Man of Steel in his top 10 of the year.
Yep, I think I might have been in my top 10 of the
And
year.
he's on Rotten Tomatoes, so Man of Steel is.
And I'm writing an article about how BVS might be a weird masterpiece.
You're wrong. Well, no, you're right, because I'm the guy that loves DC.
Breaking character already? Jeez, that
That's true.
Listen, I'm going to send you a jar of Grandma's peach tea.
what?
Well, thank you.
Isn't that what Jesse Eisenberg calls his piss in that movie?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
what he does. Yes, yeah.
Grandma's peach tea. All right. So my whole point in doing this character is that, like, who cares? Who cares about any of this shit anymore? I mean,
Yeah.
What do you mean, DC, or do you mean superhero films in general?
I mean DC. I mean DC, and I don't mean it in like because I think this shit could work. It's worked before. The Nolan films,
But
the Burton
DC
films.
has already walked back their franchise plans.
Yeah.
In what way?
Well,
They're kind of doing away with the whole idea of a cinematic universe in the vein of Marvel. They're not just going to do something more akin to their animated films, which is individual movies that don't necessarily tie into an overarching narrative.
So
I'm
basically,
taking this hat off. I'm taking this hat off.
It's
over.
The real news of the week is that's even more interesting than that to me. That didn't really make any headlines, I noticed, but I'm surprised it wasn't reported on. Is
Are we going to talk about Mario? Is that what you're about to bring up?
no, the Universal Monsters
The Dark Universe.
The Dark Universe. Yeah. All right.
the second
Yeah, I
time
could
in
have
a
told you
row-
that after I finished watching The Mummy.
Yeah, the second movie in a because the first time they tried to set up this whole universe thing was actually a few years ago when they made the movie about
Vampire Dracula Untold.
yeah
Dracula
Dracula
Untold. That's right.
that was supposed to be the first movie in a franchise, and then Universal said, "Oh, Dracula Untold was a piece of shit, so we're going to try it again, and this time we're going to do it with the Mummy." And
Well, do
and
it
The Mummy
so
was
much
actually
better.
like
Isn't
They
this
actually-
the third one though? Didn't they try it with that Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein?
that wasn't a Universal film, I don't think.
yeah,
Was it?
Victor
Oh,
Frankenstein's
okay.
kind of thing. Max Landis, but
I like Max Landis.
Dracula Untold was like a movie. They're like, oh, this is going to be a series later with monsters, but no, The Mummy was part of a calculated cinematic universe. They already had. They fucking cast everybody in all the movies going forward. I mean, Johnny Depp was the Invisible Man. Javier Bardem was the Frankenstein's monster.
Mhm.
So on and so
They had
forth.
the ridiculous picture showing the entire team together when there was only one movie made?
Without,
yes. They even have their own logo, like the Universal logo.
They showed it before the movie. They showed it before the movie. I know that I've seen The Mummy, and I don't remember a fucking thing that happens in The Mummy. But I remember before the movie started, it's like Dark Universe, and you're like, if you don't know, if you don't follow entertainment news, or like if you would just watch this, you'd be like, what the fuck is that? What does that mean?
It's like
the Universal logo spins around the globe, and then you see the other side of the globe. Everything turns black and glowy, and it's like Dark Universe. Like it literally has its own logo.
You'd think
so
I'm sorry. I was just saying, you'd think after all this time, like and all of these failed franchise starts that have been attempted in the last few years, that someone would realize that you can't just start a franchise to start a franchise.
Well, they also did it totally wrong. I mean, because this is just a balls to the wall action movie. It's a fun movie, but it's terrible.
Talking about The Mummy?
Yeah.
How was it fun? I watched it and I don't remember anything.
The Tom Cruise one?
Yeah, I hated it.
The thing is, The Mummy was never about action, and none of the Universal monsters were about action. And so
that's the thing. I think I can fix this franchise pretty fucking easily.
Okay.
I mean, like, you take it back to basics. Maybe do the whole big budget special effects thing. Maybe not. I don't know. But, like, get it to where the movies are good, and then eventually, I'm talking about in the broader. I'm not talking about specific films. I'm talking about in the broader.
Solve the problem. Make the movies good.
Yeah.
Let me finish.
Okay, all right.
On the broader scheme of things, make these movies, make them good, and then when you get to a point where you're established, introduce an Abbott and Costello spinoff.
You just want to lead to Abbott and Costello.
Yes, but I think that could work if they get the franchise to work.
Hey, Abbott!
I mean, it doesn't have to be like that. I mean, in fact, like I think I pitched this to Ken. I was like, Key and Peele meet Frankenstein. Key and Peele meet Dracula. Like, I would watch that.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of a modern day comedy duo. And when you hear the phrase Key and Peele meet Frankenstein, is there anyone in this room that wouldn't love to see that movie?
Yes.
I'd see it, yeah. But yeah, I think they're done for now. Like it's over. There's not going to be another movie. But Bill, to answer your question, yes, The Mummy is terrible, but it's got so many stupid moments. Like towards the beginning, like, oh, there's this complicated pulley system of weights and things to keep the mummy. Then he just pulls his gun and breaks it, so it releases the mummy.
Yeah, that does.
Like just for no reason.
Right. And then the ending. The ending is the whole thing that makes him the mummy. Like, and then there's the Russell Crowe, Nick Fury shit. Oh boy.
Well,
Dr. Jekyll.
The thing is, Tom Cruise has got to be everyone. Tom Cruise has got to be the Last Samurai. Tom Cruise has got to be the Mummy. Tom Cruise has got to be
American Made.
I would say
the Mexican.
Dwayne Johnson is the bigger problem with the has to be everything thing.
What, Dwayne Johnson?
Yeah, he's in fucking everything.
He's so profitable though.
He is, just like now he's in that Rampage movie coming out about the giant monsters based on the video game. And the tagline for the movie is Big Meets Bigger.
Hold up.
Yeah.
Rampage the video game.
Yeah, he's gonna be in that.
If this film doesn't have Ralph, George, and Lizzie, I'm done.
I know it has the ape.
Is he called George?
I don't know. All I know is the poster. It's Dwayne Johnson standing in front of the giant ape, and it says "Big Meets Bigger."
What the fuck? That's like a fucking Hulk Hogan thing.
Well, it's a fucking Dwayne Johnson thing now.
It's a fucking Hulk Hogan thing.
I am excited in terms of the superhero stuff. Gotham by Gaslight animated movie is coming out in 2018. Did you guys ever read about that or hear about it?
I don't know what that means.
I have no idea.
That's Gotham fighting fucking not Jack Kevorkian. Who am I thinking of? Jack the Ripper. It's
an industrial age Batman, arc. Yeah, steampunk Batman, where Batman faces off against Jack the Ripper and has to figure out who the killer is.
Steampunk Batman.
It's really fucking cool.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and I'm excited for that just because that was one of the most interesting diversions for Batman. So I'm excited to see the animated film version of that.
So was Steampunk Batman's parents murdered in an alley as well?
Yeah.
I don't remember if they made that a thing or not. I assume they would have. I don't remember that specifically, though. I just know that it involves Jack the Ripper.
Well, all right.
I'm underwhelmed by this news. I mean, maybe if I saw some art, I would be like, "That looks cool." But like you pitching this to me, I'm like, I don't.
Sorry.
It sounds like something that might be an interesting video game, but as far as
maybe
I'm like,
it was a video game before Arkham Asylum. It was the next Batman game before that got canceled, and Rocksteady made it Asylum. So it might be coming back. I don't know.
Oh, okay. This is the first I've heard of that. I really liked Arkham City. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I didn't play Asylum. Some people say Asylum is better. Where do you stand?
It's not. City is better.
Yeah, that's how I felt, and I hadn't played Asylum, but I had heard that like Asylum had some camera problems, and like City, you're out in the open. It's not you're in a confined room or whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that City is a builds on a really great concept, so it's just more of what is good about a thing, you know.
Yeah, I loved that game. I paid for the skins. I loved playing as Batman Beyond.
Those skins were good. Bill, though, I will send you I'll send you some concept art from Gotham by Gaslight, because it was like a one-shot thing by Mark Mignola, I think, helped create it. The creator of Hellboy, or Mike Mignola, I mean. So it is from the mind of the Hellboy
concept art. Okay. Well, that changes everything. I mean, essentially, because that guy's a good artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tried to boil it down to steampunk Batman.
So
I mean, it's kind of what it is, but it's a lot more about it's less about, steampunk is usually like, gadgets and technology and cool shit like that, but it's more about the zeitgeist of the times, with Jack the Ripper and everything just being in total chaos. It's more about the mood than it is the setting.
Mm-hmm.
So Justice League, just for the heck of it, I'm clicking on Rotten Tomatoes to see if there are any reviews that have posted yet.
I don't think there are.
Well, there have been reviews that have been posted, just not on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right.
Rotten Tomatoes is holding off the rating until tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
This is almost,
which is interesting.
I think this is unprecedented, right?
Yeah, they have a reveal. It says 12:01 a.m. So they want us to stay up to midnight.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought it was like 2:50 last time I checked.
Yeah, it says 12:01 a.m. Eastern time.
But Rotten Tomatoes is owned by Fandango, which makes things very interesting and very.
Are they owned by Fandango? I thought they were. I think they were in a relationship with Flickster, but I didn't know.
I'm pretty sure they are. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, all right.
Yep. Fandango Media, which.
So this is their way of manipulating, or trying to manipulate the ticket sales in some way.
And the ticket sales are already on track to not do so hot. It's only looking at only looking at $110 million weekend, which is below expectations.
Well, the thing I thought was hilarious was like Batman vs Superman. Everyone was talking about how this movie will be considered a failure if it doesn't make $1 billion.
And it didn't. Well, it didn't here.
Well, yeah, internationally it didn't either. But
you're talking about BVS, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, because they were saying it wouldn't have turned a profit otherwise.
Right. Well, the movie did turn a profit, but that is my understanding. But I think the studio had their hopes on a specific number, and it didn't reach that number.
Well, somebody posted the post-credits scene of Justice League Online.
Oh wow! Okay. That's pretty funny. I read what it was, by the way. So
I can assure you that the way that it sounds is a lot cooler than the way that it looks. Like, hearing it described is way more awesome than what it actually turns out to be.
Luthor is starting the Legion of Doom, right?
Well, okay. All right. Spoilers, everyone. Spoilers.
Oh my God! For a film that hasn't even come out yet. No, I'm grinding up marijuana. Anyway, continue.
Wow.
Well, it's very loud.
Not
so
illegal.
What happens? What happens at the end of Justice League?
Meanwhile, of the Legion of Doom,
Solomon Grundy want pants too.
Basically, Lex Luthor meets with Deathstroke, and they're like, we're gonna create a league of our own.
Ooh, a league of their own.
The Injustice League, maybe?
Does Tom Hanks just appear? There's no crying in baseball.
There's no crying and supervillain camaraderie.
That's not the only post-credit scene. There's another one.
What's the other one?
It's where
Superman challenges the Flash to a race.
Oh,
What?
okay. I didn't see that one.
Ugh, okay.
Wasn't that in kind of what they did in Arrow, where
That was in an episode of Smallville, if I'm not mistaken.
well, there's an episode of Arrow too where they're buddies now, and Green Arrow's like, I'm gonna shoot an arrow and you're gonna go catch it, or some bullshit like that. I don't know. It's the same kind of
That's
like
that's not the same thing, but it kind of is in a way. But,
in the sense of heroes getting chummy and doing friend things with each other because they're in a league together.
Yeah, I like how we're describing these scenes as if we're disgusted by them, but we haven't even seen them yet.
I've seen the Justice League one.
Okay, well, I haven't seen these yet, so I don't know how they're going to play out in the movie overall. Based on what I've seen in the progression of the trailers of Justice League, from the colors, from like there were sequences that were done at night that were somehow shifted to red in later trailers, and ugly red, muddy red almost,
Oh, so the trailers with the red.
The red sky
aren't really like that in the movie.
The hue and stuff. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out overall, but I can tell you in the trailers, it doesn't. It looks very manufactured, which I know it's a movie, but it doesn't look clean. It looks very like we filmed this in front of a green screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how it's going to play out on a big screen. Maybe it'll look better. I don't know. Maybe we'll see the seams more, which I hope not. But I'm always an optimist. I'm looking forward to this. Even begrudgingly so. I'm looking forward to it. So
I'm a nihilist, so I am looking forward to how horrible this is, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Oh, okay.
I might not go see it.
I'm literally looking up how long this movie is to find.
It's not that long. It's like just under 2 hours.
Under?
Yeah. Yes.
It's like just a hair. It's like an hour and 50 something minutes.
According to Wikipedia, it's 120 minutes, but that's okay if it's like an hour 58 or whatever.
That might be including credits actually.
Wow. So someone got the memo.
Yeah, they're like, dude, just shorten this shit. You're making
This was
it way
supposed
too
to be
epic.
2 movies.
So edited by David Brenner, Richard Pearson.
David Brenner. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, according to
not
Google,
the
it's an hour and
comedian,
59 minutes.
I was thinking of the comedian David Brenner, by the way.
Right. Well,
Who's that?
David Brenner has been Oliver Stone's editor for a long time.
Oh, okay. All right.
I mean, not like his only editor, but he edited like a lot of his early stuff.
Oh, okay.
So the embargo, the review embargo lifted at 2:50 a.m. That's what I was thinking when I saw that. The Rotten Tomatoes score has been leaked. It's 51%.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
48.
Is that where